I must check for any place a person can hide during a fire drill. Okay. Let's see how that works out for you. I replied to an MC story here, and it reminded me of the power of building up a mob of people to get your revenge properly. Background. I worked in a building where I was a fire marshal. No extra money and a small amount of extra work, but someone has to do it. I was also first aider and somehow got landed with arranging the Christmas night out, so maybe the building manager saw me as an easy mark. The only advantage that I had was that during a drill or real event I had absolute power. Anyone not following an evacuation order swiftly was called up for disciplinary action. We had random drills, about 12 per year. My job was to ensure that the building was clear, basically pop my head in each office space, toilets, kitchens, etc., and see that nobody was there, and then take a register outside. 5 minutes tops. Anyone booked into the building that was not registered by me was in trouble. The drills were sprung on me, as well as the building manager had the fire alarm keys, and it made it a more realistic test. The building manager was a dick. He wielded his small amount of power as much as he could and loved to report people for tiny infractions. During one drill he hid in a cupboard and then called me into his office for failing to ensure that the building was clear. Apparently, some people may run and hide from a fire instead of leaving the building. I got a wagging finger and told to do better next time or I would lose the marshal role. My job was pretty safe since nobody actually wanted to take over, and after hearing the story of me getting into trouble, they absolutely did not want the job. The building manager changed the fire marshal process instruction to include checking hiding places. This is a site instruction. He had no power to do so, I later found out. MC begins. The alarm went off, the first after my failure to check cupboards. Everyone left, crossed the road and stood in the assembly point in, and this is very important, the rain and wind. I searched the top floor very carefully, opening up large cupboards, opening up boxes large enough to hide a person, looking under each desk in case someone was hiding. First floor ditto, UK, so our first floor is US second and our ground is US first. By now people were cold and wet and unhappy, but building manager refused to let them enter. He knew that it was coming. He was well prepared for the weather. Most people had light clothing on as the car park stood next the building. They don't bother with coats in the 20-feet trip from car to building. Ground floor checked everywhere, and finally the basement where the boiler lives and is a general dumping ground for old files and junk. That took ages, but I was thorough. Very thorough. And slow. Thorough slow, not taking the piss slow. I left the building, took the register, and a mass of sodden people headed back into the building. I was massively unpopular until I showed them the pie that said I had to check all spaces that someone could hide. They knew what happened at the last test and directed all the anger at building manager. It was the equivalent of the angry villagers turning up at Castle Frankenstein with torches and pitchforks. People were furious at him. One of the office staff was a union rep and reported him to the site safety officer, who went ballistic at him, telling me to remain in a potentially burning building longer than necessary, and a number of people went home to get dry clothes, and the company had to give them special leave to do so, or else the union would have to get involved. He got shit from all sides: workers, union, management, and site safety officer. Most of the time nothing gets done when it is just you complaining, but it really gets done when the correct people are inconvenienced.
Now to the comments. Most of the time nothing gets done when it is just you complaining, but it really gets done when the correct people are inconvenienced. So true, it hurts.
OP replied. Most of the time nothing gets done when it is just you complaining, but it really gets done when the correct people are inconvenienced. So true, it hurts. I am currently brewing one of those right now. I run a bunch of servers and databases that gets light use until the end of the month, when all the management pile on to do their end of month metrics. It auto pulls data from all over the place and generates management friendly data, simple and colorful charts and graphs. It has a failing COM process that eats all the processor cycles, and I have logged an IT ticket, but it is not an easy fix and they are all busy hitting the easy fixes to get their metrics up. Nobody cares and I cannot get them to fix it, but I have a full list of emails and call logs from my daily call and online chats to IT. End of the month when none of the managers can get their pretty pie charts and the excrement will hit the air moving device. It will get fixed instantly. You just need to inconvenience the correct people. 35 years of experience at work.
IT here, and thankfully one that does not have to worry about metrics, as they are dumb, and only taken as something more than an informational piece by idiots. When people start complaining, make sure you link them every single one of your tickets with a note stating they are aware. Feel free to ask them about this as well. Agree on the moral of the story? I teach my quartermaster scouts to issue the oldest, broken camping gear to the adults. They're the only ones who can fix/replace it.
As long as you issue them a coffee pot, all should be fine with that. Back when I was a scout leader, besides car camping kitchen equipment, most of the adults used their own gear.
We've a huge trailer for monthly glamping. QMs maintain issue all gear. I try to ensure the youth issue the adult patrol the leaky pop-up shelters, broken big stoves, dim LED lights, leaky 6-gallon water jugs, etc. For backpacking such, yes, it's nearly all BYOG. 12 drills a year sounds like a lot. What does it mean to report people for infractions? Who is getting the report and are there consequences?
OP replied. Monthly is common for us. It is an office in a shipyard. Real fires were not uncommon, maybe 2 a year in the welding areas or on board ships. Reporting was usually verbal with an HR letter. HR and it is of low consequence, it expires after 3 months. Verbal is 2 to 3 points. Written is above 6, final written is above 10. Get 12 and you are out.
I work in a distillery. Regular drills and false alarms are common. If there's a real fire and it hits the spirit, you're ducked so no one will ignore or hide if there's an alarm. Building managers are the PE teachers of the working world. Used to work with one who was a real life, Gordon Brittas. Once when he phoned me, I thought that it was Chris Berry on the other end. He instituted a policy of the changing rooms in the building being cleared of all staff property not in lockers at 1700 hours on a Friday. Now, I used to commute by bike, so I would shower when I arrived. My towel would be hanging to dry while I was at work, and I would either store it in my locker when I left, or take it home on a Friday. I also worked in IT, and as my job, relied on other people providing information to be processed into main systems, and was a key part in ensuring that sites could transfer stock between themselves. I was not able to work to the clock. One Friday in winter, I wasn't able to get away until 17:20 due to one problem site not sending forms through until 16:59, and then I had to call them for corrections, which is a whole nother rant. I got down to get changed to go, and not only was my towel gone, but so were the gloves that I'd left on the radiator to air. I had to run around trying to find him, and then he lectured me about the need to leave on time and not leave things lying around. I had to explain that not all of us had the luxury of clock watching. Gift.
OP replied. They are their own worst enemy because they build ammunition to use against themselves. Same BM would not pay for the drains to be cleaned, and so when they block, he blamed coffee grounds for blocking the sinks and put up signs saying that no coffee granules to be put down the drain, spelling important here. We continued and he went ballistic until we pointed out that we don't use coffee granules. Sign was changed to coffee granules. We continued. He went nuts. We pointed out that we had grounds. It was changed to no coffee to be put down the drain. We got buckets and put up a sign that waste coffee to be put in the bucket since none was allowed in the sink. The cleaners complained as it was not their job to pour away the contents. BM tipped it down the sink and we pointed to the sign. BM removed sign. Very petty behavior, but it staves off insanity.
I know it stands for building manager, but I can't help but read every BM as bowel movement in my head. I think the building manager just enjoyed hide and seek and wanted someone to play with. Also, the idea that people might hide from fires is baffling. If you are dealing with adults and have monthly fire drills, no one is going to hide instead of exiting the building.
In the building I work at, we didn't have anybody hide from a fire drill, but at one fire drill a deaf intern didn't come out. He had been in the bathroom and didn't know we were having a fire drill. They realized at that point that the building didn't have adequate measures for the hearing impaired, so they added flashing lights to most of the alarm speakers.
Yes, ADA should be taken into account when designing fire alarm systems. Typically, bathrooms only have strobes and no horn unless it's a voice/evac system, then they should have speaker/strobes. Even small, single-person bathrooms should have a strobe. At least they figured it out in a drill, rather than a real fire.